All right, good morning. It's 9 o'clock, so let's get started. I try to start these sessions on time because, as you might have seen in the calendar, we have quite long sessions. We have sessions of 4 hours, which is because this program is in a working program, so it's either in the evening or the weekend. I always try to end a little bit earlier, but we never know. It depends a little bit. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the first session of Informatics for Management. My name is Peter de Bruin and I will be teaching this course. I've been doing it for quite some years now. And I like this personally. I like this course. I like teaching this course a lot because it allows us to explore some fundamental concepts in informatics, which are very relevant, we think, for managers. So today we have our very first lecture. In total, we have 8 lectures. 5 of them will be like this one, a bit more theoretical background, examples, discussions on fundamental concepts in informatics for management. And then the last 3 sessions will be more practically oriented. They will be more focusing on exercises, on techniques that you can use as future manager in this world of informatics. First session, that means that today I will explain a little bit what the course is about. I will explain to you what you can expect from me, what I expect from you. We will, of course, discuss how the evaluation will go so that you know up front how the exam will go, how it will be scored, what you should know. And then, of course, in the second part, we will also already, the second part of today, we will already discuss some fundamental concepts that you will need towards the rest of the course as of next session in 2 weeks, I think it is. Some of them, they might already, or they probably will already ring a bell from previous courses or your practical experience or your previous education, but we will try to make a little bit of a link to what is actually the management, the business implication, and we will link that also to a very fundamental problem in IT, which we will discuss in depth. Now, before we get started, I wanted to show you a short movie which will explain a little bit the very essence or the very reason why we decided to have a mandatory course on informatics within the management program. I will not talk too much about it before we take a look at it, but I invite you to just look at it, observe what's happening, and then afterwards we will discuss. Movie was not about IT. Nevertheless, I thought it was interesting to show it because a problem is happening here in the video, the scenario that we are seeing here. What is actually happening? What's the problem that's happening here? Any suggestions? Yes, please. Unrealistic expectations. Yes, indeed. Any other views? Yes. The definition of perpendicularity. Yes. What is the problem with that? Yes, so basically we have 2 groups of stakeholders. We have some kind of like the project management team, the more business-oriented people, and we have the expert in, I don't know which area, in drawing lines. And it's clear that there is a problem. They kind of don't get to understand or have the same understanding about what perpendicularity means. So, and that causes a lot of frustration because normally most people would agree that both parties in this meeting, they want for the project to succeed, right? Both of them have the impression, okay, they want to succeed something or some kind of project, and it's not that one party is trying to block the other party. It's not that one wants to have the project to go into disaster and the other one is trying to fight for it. No, they both have a common goal. They both want this project to succeed, but there is a problem. It's not effective. Even the chairman of the meeting even says, like, let's not get into these unproductive quarrels. And that has a problem, or that has a reason, and that reason is, as your colleague rightfully mentioned, there's this problem of the definition of perpendicularity. basically pinpointing to the fact that there is no common vocabulary, no common understanding of of the basic definitions in a certain domain, in a certain area. Here we're not talking about IT, but probably something like geometry or something like that. If you know the basics of geometry, you know that 7 perpendicular lines all to each other, that it doesn't exist. But maybe also a very good expert would be able to explain it in more clear terms, what perpendicularity means and why the definition means that you cannot have 7 perpendicular lines all perpendicular to each other. And this is the same kind of problems that we see in a lot of IT projects, in a lot of informatics projects, where a system is trying to be built, where a system needs to be adapted, where it needs to be set into a certain business environment, and where we see that all parties involved, they basically want the project to succeed. However conflicts arise, problem might end up in a failure. There's a lot of frustration. It's not effective, and in a lot of cases, that is because of the fact that there's no common understanding of those basic concepts. There is a gap between that expert and between more business project-related people because they don't have that common vocabulary, they don't have that shared basic understanding of that domain. And that is actually the very reason why we have created this kind of course in this program, because we see that a lot of those projects, a lot of IT projects, they fail. And one of the reasons is that there is not that common understanding between those two parties. Now, the video kind of suggested that it was like the dumb project people and the very wise expert manager. Of course, that is a bit like to kick in the humoristic aspect. But actually, this kind of bridging function, this common vocabulary, this common understanding of the basics in a certain field, of course, it's responsibility of the two parties. It's not only the project team, it's also this expert who should be able to make the bridge. But it means that we think that in a manager's education, there should be an IT component, and hopefully in every IT program, there should also be this management or economics trajectory. So that's the very reason why we created this course and why we think it's important for you to be on board with this. That also has some very important implications about what this course will not be about. Some people, usually the minority, some people, they come into this course with the expectation that we will be doing some coding, that you will open up your laptop, start programming from day one till the end of the course. We will not. In a lot of cases, I see people smile in that kind of occasions. Some people are a bit disappointed, but if you want to learn to program, there are many other courses that we offer, and you will find it there. I will teach you the concepts. I will teach you the basic fundamentals of IT in a management context and what the management challenges are, but the actual coding, software engineering is not for this course. We will even not use the Sheldon Cooper approach, which is a little bit in the context as everything is better with technology, everything is better with IT. No, there might be cases in which certain technological advancements, certain IT investments are maybe not the best choice because you are operating in a business environment, you're operating as a manager in a company. So there is this cost-benefit analysis that you need to do, and sometimes it's better not to use technology. So we will try to be not to be too biased and not always go for the full technical option. And what I also try to avoid with this course is to really be a nerd quiz in the sense that I will not bombard you with the capacities and the speed of certain hard drives or networks or whatever. It also holds for all the things that we discuss in the course. I do not care so much about the tiny little details, the little precise numbers. I think it's more important that you know the fundamentals, the basic concepts, and the exact small technical details. They do not matter so much. So what it should be, as we just said, what it will not be, what it should be, or what I try to make of this course is really to make a little bit this bridge, that you are able to talk to information technology experts. You are not the expert, but you try to talk to the experts in a way that you can meet somewhere in the middle, that you can talk a language that information technologists understand, and that hopefully those information technologies, they also do the effort to cross the bridge from their side and to translate what they know into a business language. So what does it mean more specifically? What are the learning goals? I will use this slide more or less again in a later session that we will have to reflect on whether or not we now have achieved those goals. But what are the learning goals then for this course? Well, first of all, what we will do in the next session is we will discuss the different types of IT systems that you have in a company. Because this is different than your typical word processor that you might have on your laptop and then social media or other normal applications that you might be used to. No, IT systems used in a company context, they have typical characteristics, they have typical challenges. And so by knowing those different types of systems, by knowing their challenges, it will be easier to operate in such an environment. In third lecture, we will focus on, well, once we know the type of IT system that we want to develop, how do we go ahead? And so we will discuss IT project management, again from a management, from an economics point of view, looking at the challenges and the opportunities that arise in that context. We will also investigate a little bit what the impact of IT systems, of information systems, is on business models, on the everyday operations of organizations. And then the last, more theoretical lecture will focus a little bit more on contemporary IT hypes. I tend to call it like this lecture, and then the lectures 2 until 4. They're quite stable in the sense that those are fundamentals that already exist for several years, decades actually, and they more or less stay the same, whatever technology or whatever IT hype that comes across. In this fifth lecture, we will discuss some more recent developments, and also there we will try to discuss, to the extent possible, what are the underlying fundamentals and what are the management implications of that. And then very important, this last learning goal, we will also devote 3 sessions, so it's quite a large portion of the course, almost 50% of the course. We will devote it to specific techniques that will allow you to talk to those IT experts via specific notations, techniques, ways of drafting and talking. In a lot of cases, when you just sit together, as we saw in the movie, around one table, and you talk about what an IT system should do, how it should function, often it doesn't really work. There are too much degrees of freedom. It's not clear. It's not unambiguous. So in the world of IT systems, information systems, some techniques have been developed that allow you to not just by using words, but by using graphs or by using fixed formulations to explain to more technical people what you precisely want. And those techniques, those notations that we will use there, that I will teach you, they will be for sure understandable for IT people. And they will allow you to really express what you want and to take out a lot of those unambiguities that often exist. Yeah. By the way, if at any point there's something unclear, feel free to interrupt me, and we will address your questions, of course. The course structure is very much aligned with those learning goals. So today we will have, as I said before, we will have an introduction, we will cover some basic concepts, and then we will almost one by one tackle those learning goals. So after this introduction, we will have a session on enterprise applications, we will have a session on the development of enterprise applications, we will have a session on business models or the impact of IT on business models. We will have a session focusing on these trends, hypes, and then we have 3 sessions focusing on expressing functional requirements. How will we do that? As I said before, we have 8 lectures, 5 more theoretical lectures, 3 more practical sessions. As I also said before, these sessions are quite long, not only for the students, also for the other sides. But it was kind of, again, a careful consideration. Either we make these sessions much shorter, but then you have to do a lot of more self-study, or we make them a little bit longer. But yeah, we try to end on time. We try to have regular breaks. And of course, if you actively participate, if you ask questions, if you give examples, then it makes it a little bit more lively and easier to digest. We will only have 8 sessions. It's a 6 credits course, so it still means that actually those 8 sessions, they are not able to cover enough. So I will offer on the learning platform some additional texts and papers, not too much. Don't be too much afraid or discouraged, but I need to introduce some additional learning material that we will not be able to cover in class. I will give the full overview today. I will also post them on the learning platform. I encourage you to read them after each session. Of course, I cannot control that. I cannot verify that, and it's a little bit your own responsibility. But it helps because each of those texts, they are linked to one of the topics that we will discuss. And as I said before, if you have questions, please ask them during the lecture or just before or just after. If you have a question, it often means that some of your fellow students have a similar or the same question. So don't hesitate. Also, if I explain something and it's not clear, I will not be offended if you raise your hand and I explain it again in another way or something else. But if you don't raise it, I also don't know that it's unclear. There is some course material. There will be slides, the ones that I use. I will also post them online. I've not posted them up front because that jeopardizes a little bit the discussion. You can browse through the slides up front, and if I ask a question, a lot of people, they already took a look at the slides. So I don't know, is it really something that you think, or is it something that you looked up in the handouts? The slides are the main source, the slides and the lectures that we have, meaning that it's advised to take notes. It's advised to follow the lectures. Those are the core of the course. Of course, those additional papers and text, which we will not discuss in class, they are also part of the mandatory course material. You should also know them for the exam, but we will not be able to discuss them here. In the last 3 sessions, as I said, they will be more practical. So the exercises that we covered there, they are also part of the learning material. If some of them will be asked on the exam, of course, the exercises will be similar. They will not be exactly the same because you've already made them, but they are a good reference point. Exercises on the exam will be of a similar difficulty, of a similar kind than the ones that you see here during the lectures. And as I said, I'm aware that these lectures are quite long. We try to do it in the best configuration possible. What I try to do is I try to provide recordings of the first 5 lectures, like the more theoretical ones. So if you cannot really make it, look at the slides. They are much more extensive than I do for regular courses because a lot of things are written there. Discuss maybe with a fellow student the notes that he or she might have taken. And if that's really not possible, try to take a look at the recordings. It's IT, it's technology, so it never always works perfectly. So I had some cases where sometimes, and now again, I'm recording, but specifically with the mic, often parts of it, they disappear. So there's a disclaimer here. I do my best. Sometimes something goes wrong, and that's a pity. But I'll try to post them if available. Nevertheless, it's always nicer if the room is not completely empty, and if you are here to participate in discussions, to ask questions, and I also know from experience that people who never come to class, they have a significantly less good chance of passing, in the sense that there are some students, and of course, who don't do anything during the year, and then 2 or 3 days before the exam, they look at the lectures at 2 times speed, and they think they will digest it. That doesn't work. Also, looking at these lectures just from your laptop screen, it's typically much less engaging than being here. But in order to facilitate, I offer you this as as an option. This was mandatory course material. There's also a little bit of recommended course material, again, to facilitate your learning process, to help you, but this is not mandatory. In the sense that one of the things I will do, I will post in the coming days, is a running case of an imaginary company. We call it Retail Co. A retail company for which I provide a short case description. And then for each of the parts of the course, I will give you some questions on that case. And they should allow you to assess whether you understand those parts of the course, yes or no. So they will allow you to apply your knowledge, apply what we have said to that particular case. But I said it's recommended. It's self-study. We will not be able to discuss it during class. I will also not give like the solution or whatever. It's mostly also in terms of reflection. And even the case description, I mean, you should not know it by heart. It's not that I will ask you a question, how was this done in Retail Co? No. It's just a means to help you and to make the study process easier. So as the title says, I recommend it to you, but it's not mandatory. We also have a course text or a handbook, which is the one of Loudon and Loudon. I've added here a table where I try to map the parts that we discuss to the chapters of the book. We don't follow it very sequentially. There are also some items that are in there that we do not cover, and some items that we cover that are not in the book. So it's not a one-on-one mapping, but I know that a lot of students find the book very useful for additional examples, additional explanations. It's an American authored book, so in a lot of cases, the examples are American, US style, and so on, but they might help. Certainly, if you're not familiar with information technology, and it's the first time that you are confronted with these kind of concepts, the book is very helpful, and then I advise you to buy it and then to take a look. But as I said before, if it's something that we did not discuss in class, and it's only mentioned in the book, then it will not be asked on the exam. Yeah? So it's advised, it's recommended, but start from the lectures, start from the discussions that we have, and the book is very good as background material for additional cases, additional explanations. If you buy it, make sure that you buy the global edition, not the American one. It's more or less the same, but the global is for Europe as well, and it also will make a big difference in the price. So take that into account. Then there's some optional course material as well on the techniques that we will discuss later on BPM and on UML. But again, that's certainly not as recommended as the handbook. I said before, the main chunk of the course are these lectures. There are some additional texts and papers. These are mandatory. I have listed them here. We will not have the time to discuss them in class. I am also not allowed to post the papers themselves on the online learning platform due to copyright reasons, but as you are a VUB student, you can go to the site of the library and you can find them all there. I've taken journals, mostly from the Harvard Business Review, one from the California Management Review, which are very open to non-tech specialists. So generally, they're quite accessible, they're quite easy to read, although they tackle some IT issues. You see also that some articles are quite old, they're 20 years old, some of them are more recent. The old ones, well, those are articles that have proven their value and have passed the test of time in the sense that they are still relevant, although they already date from quite some years ago. Of course, for certain newer tendencies or trends in the field, we need to include some more recent papers as well. How should you study them? Well, my advice is, as I said before, after each of the lectures, you will see those 5 main blocks. Well, for each of those 5 theoretical blocks, there's one paper associated with them. My advice to you is to read them after each lecture, to digest them, to summarize them, to take some notes. I will again try to help you, to facilitate you in the learning process, in the sense that I will provide you a document with some reflection questions. For each of the papers, I will provide a set of questions that help you in understanding the basics and the core of those papers. There will be no exemplary solutions of that. It's up to you. Again, this is an advice. It's not mandatory, but it will help you to process the papers. And again, be not surprised. This is mandatory, but we will not cover it. On the exam, I will ask you basic concepts, key aspects of these papers. I will ask you for examples. I will ask you for definitions of main concepts. I will ask you to make some kind of comparison between some of those concepts, but I will not focus on irrelevant details. So specific numbers, specific years, those are not the items to focus on. We really want to focus on key concepts, examples, and the main messages. And these reflection questions, they will help you in doing that. Then one of the slides which typically gets most attention during this first lecture, it's about the evaluation. As all the courses at the VUB, they will be evaluated on a total of 20 points. And we will do that by way or by means of a written exam. And the written exam will have 3 parts. I know some students are better in written questions, open questions. Some students prefer multiple choice questions. Some students prefer exercises. Well, in this exam, there will be something for everyone in the sense that we have 3 parts with those 3 different types of questions. Out of those 20 points, half of them, 50%, will be determined based on multiple choice, 4 of them open questions. So a reflection question, I ask you to explain something, I ask you to give me some examples of something, I ask you to contrast certain things, these kind of things, 4 points, and then exercises, mostly linked to those techniques that we will see in the last 3 lectures. Those are marked on 6 points. And so these different types of questions in the exam, they will also allow me to assess not only what you know, but also the extent to where you're actually able to understand them and to give examples, to put relationships between them, and also to apply them in specific situations. You have 2.5 hours to complete that exam, which is ample of time. I mean, the time is not a difficulty on the exam. It's more on the questions themselves. You have plenty of time to fill in the exam. Basically 1 hour, 1.5 hours should be sufficient. And everything in class, any additional material is to be known. Yeah. And typically at this stage, one of the hands raises because they have a question on the multiple choice. How will that work? Well, the multiple choice part will be with 20 questions. For each of those questions, you have 4 possible answers. 1 and only 1 answer is correct. Never 2, never 0, always 1. There is no penalty for wrong answers. So that means that even if you're doubting a little bit, it's in your advantage to still select something, select the answer that you think is most correct, or that is the only correct one. But as you know, it is multiple choice. On every question you have, if you never studied the course, you still have 25% chance of indicating the right answer. So there is a correction mechanism. There's no penalty if you have a wrong answer, but there is a compensation for the guessing as such, which means what we will do is that we will look at the total number of correct answers that you provide on the 20 questions. And of course, if you have all of them correct, you get a maximum score. So you get 10 for this part of the exam. If you have none of the questions correct, of course, you have 0. But in order to pass, in order to have the 50% of the points, you need to have a little bit more than 10 questions correct. You have to have 13 questions corrected, then you score 5.33, because what we basically do is for the first 5 questions that you answer correctly, you really don't get any points, but as of then you get 0.66 points. So that means there's a little bit of compensation for the benefit that you had from guessing. Yeah. Any questions on that? Because no. Okay. Very good. Then last thing of the introduction, or at least of the organization, there's a bit of time management. people often underestimate courses in this working program, not only this one, most courses there, because they do not always realize that this course and others in the program are 6 credits, meaning that the estimated effort for you to complete this course is roughly 160 hours. That is with everything included, so the lectures, the exams, the preparation, studying, and so on. But 160 hours minus the lectures, 32 hours, still means that almost 130 hours, 128 to be precise, are considered to be done outside of these lectures. And that's almost 2 full-time weeks. Of course, there are always students who manage to do it in less. Some students need more. But it means that we do expect a little bit of work outside these lectures as well. For instance, by reading those papers, for instance, by making some additional exercises that I will put online to digest the course, to study the course, and so on. So it might sound very light, those 8 lectures, but in the end, it's still a 6th-grade course, so don't be surprised. I don't say this to make you afraid. I just say it to be honest and then to not have you surprised later on. What I'd advise you to do always is to follow a little bit some popular news sources on the information technology world, and mostly also those which are a bit more business oriented. So sources like The Economist, Harvard Business Review, The Verge, Wired, maybe even TechCrunch. If you have time, follow them. Because some of the aspects that we will be discussing will for sure come back in the actuality and the news that's coming up. What is, for instance, currently happening in the information technology world right now? What's covered in the news these few days on IT, information technology? Any idea? The AI boom, for sure. Every kind of, even Harvard Business Review, you will find a lot of articles on AI and things like that. Some both positively and negatively. There were some, as you know, there are some chip companies, chip producing companies in the world, in the United States, in Europe, and the last financial release or the last financial reports, they showed that sometimes this IA boom is a little bit exaggerated, so that the financial results of some companies producing those chips are not as good as expected, so they decline. On the other hand, SAP, which is big enterprise software company in Germany, has now become recently the most valued company in Europe. Just because of this AI integration into their software tools. That's very correct. Another thing that you might notice in the past few weeks, and probably will have a continuation in the next few weeks, is that within the world of information technology, we see that there are a few very dominant players. We have Apple, we have Google or Alphabet, we have Microsoft, and a few others, some very dominant companies that are dominating that industry. And what we saw is that now there are some lawsuits coming in from governments. And now recently, for instance, the US government announced that they will investigate the dominance of some of those rather dominant companies in the industry. For instance, for Alphabet, they were investigating, should we split up the company, yes or no? With those app stores, both from Apple and from Google, well, there are also some investigations there. Do we allow those companies to be the only store for selling apps on their devices, on iPhones, on Android phones, and so on? So you will see that actually in the news, quite a lot of things are covered in this world of information technology. Again, is it mandatory study material? No, but it helps you to understand. It might make it a little bit more interesting. And if I ask you on the exam to give me some kind of example of something, then it might also help. You might be inspired by that, but it's not strictly necessary. What I will try to do with this course as well is you might encounter some concepts that you've already seen before in other courses. And this is not a bad thing, and this is on purpose. You will see some concepts coming back from other courses, like logistic, where we will talk about supply chain. You will see some concepts from strategic management, like Porter, Porter's value chain, Porter's 5 forces model. You will see some concepts coming back from marketing, customer lifetime value, churn rates, these kind of things. You will see some concepts coming back from accounting and finance and so on. This is not for the application. This is to make the link, because IT covers all those domains, is linked with all those domains. So it is on purpose that some concepts from those courses come back. Again, we're busy now for a little bit of 40 minutes. Let's try to make a little bit interactive again. I would like to invite you to go to this one. You can either go to WooClap and enter the event code, or to scan this QR code. And once you're there, I would like to ask you to try to summarize in one word, based on what we said until now, based on your own personal beliefs and knowledge. What do you think are main reasons why a future manager should study informatics, except from this communication aspect that, of course, we just saw in the movie? Just to see a little bit what's the atmosphere in the room, and to see whether what we will do matches your expectations. Let's see. Well, if you don't have scanned it yet, you will see it's still here. Can I hide this for the time being? I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's. Okay. Let's make it full screen if we can. Okay, so we have more than 50 people participating, so thanks for that. The cloud is still in full development, also meaning that there's no one keyword that stands out, although some of them I think have been repeated a few times. We see the word business, which is a bit bigger. We see understanding. We see system. Gain basic understanding. Yes, indeed. Correct. I see alignment. That's a word that I like a lot. Development, solutions, efficiency. Yes. And actually, the central word understanding. Yeah, it's not too bad indeed. It's quite interesting. What we will try to do is we will try to provide you with some kind of understanding of those basic concepts, to build a bridge, to allow you to communicate with those IT people, to look at alignment, yeah, to make sure that your company is future-proof, that it is agile. So indeed, there's not one key thing that stands out, but in general, I like your suggestions very much. I also saw change somewhere. Change is also a very important one. Yeah. Innovation. Yeah. Very good suggestions. Very good suggestions. And I hope you understand, or I hope you agree at least, that this course is a very essential one in your program. We do think it's necessary these days that people have that kind of understanding. So thanks a lot. Before the first break, let's dive into some of those elements a little bit deeper. I try to make kind of two elements of fundamental reasons why informatics are these days more important in the management world. There's the good news and there's the inconvenient truth. And the good news is things that most of them, or most of you, already kind of implicitly know. The inconvenient truth, which we will then probably tackle after the break, is something that is maybe not so well known, and I think it's also important to stress. We will not take too much time of this because normally some of those aspects have already been covered in the preparatory course that some of you needed to take or will need to take later on. First reason why informatics these days are crucial or essential in companies is because if you want to have operational excellence in your company, if you want to be efficient, if you want to operate your company in a way that is similar to your competitors, that is at least as good, well, then you need those information systems to work for you in your company. Both private companies, government agencies, small companies, big companies, you name it, they need to have information systems to make their way of working a little bit efficient. This one, for instance, is a small screenshot of Text on Web, which was one of the bigger platforms in Belgium. And if some of you are Belgian residents, you might be familiar already with that because it is the application that Belgian residents use to file their tax application, something they typically don't like, but they need to do it every year. In the beginning of 2010 or until 2015, the Belgian government decided to shift this whole application from something purely paper-based to something digital. And the efficiency gains that were obtained by that were enormous. This counter is from 2015. Today, I don't know the precise figures, but 60-70% or more of the tax applications, they happen in a digital way, which is, as you can imagine, a big leap in operational excellence, because you don't need to send it anymore. There are no public servants anymore who need to scan or type those numbers, door boxes in these information systems. And the time that has been left, so those public servants that now do not need to scan those forms anymore, that do not need to enter the data manually anymore, they now devote their time to something else. They now devote their time to comparing results, to doing data analysis on those results, to cross-check those data with data that is, for instance, provided by your bank, if you have, or by your employer. If you have a salary, if you're working in Belgium, that data is automatically transferred to the tax authorities. They can control whether you fill in the right amount, or they can even pre-fill that amount on your tax declaration. They will check whether you have a mortgage on your house, and they will fill in that data or check that data whether it is correct. They will automatically calculate whether you get money or whether you need to pay additional money. And they will also do analysis in terms of detecting possible fraud. So by having done this work for years, they have lots of data, lots of information, and they try to look for patterns to see which tax applications might be likely to be fraudulent. So the efficiency gain here is tremendous, and because instead of just entering the data, the manual work that is put into these tax declarations is really studying the data, cross-checking, and well, the idea is to make sure that everyone contributes their fair share. So it's much easier to find those applications that are not correct, that are not sincere, and to act upon them. So in terms of getting value for money, in terms of making sure that as many applications as possible are correct, this tool, just as many other tools, just as many other systems in companies, they increase the efficiency enormously. Crucial for managers to understand. Second part is that it does not allow you only to do the same thing more efficient. It also allows you to engage into new products and business models. This is a graph was designed by Chris Anderson, and he is the author of a book from some years ago called The Long Tail. And he was one of those authors who could very clearly explain the impact of information technology, and more specifically the internet, on the business models of organizations. Is there anyone who knows this figure and who might say a few words on this? Anyone who has seen this figure before? This graph? No? Well, Chris Anderson with the idea of the long tail says, well, without IT, without the proper use of IT, retail companies, and mainly focusing on retail companies, they were stuck in the red portion of this graph. Bookstores, for instance, retail bookstores. What they were doing is they could only address the market by focusing on the head of the long tail, meaning the amount of products, so the different titles, the amount of titles from books that they could offer, they were rather limited because they were constrained by the location, by the size of their bookstore, and so on. But there was another limitation, and that's the popularity. If you have a bookstore, well, it only makes sense to put the books there that are very popular. Because if you have X amount of square meters, for instance, in Brussels, every square meter is quite expensive. So you need to fill it in such a way, you need to make sure that the books are there, which are very popular. Because if you go for unpopular books, you might maybe attract a very specific audience, but you will not be able to sell enough to be profitable. And you might say, but okay, well, I have a very specific audience and then they are prepared to pay a little bit more. Yes, maybe, but you're still constrained by your physical location because people will not come from Charleroi or from Ghent, typically in Brussels, to buy a book. So you are constrained by your physical location, by your market that is limited in a physical way. And so in a traditional market without use of information systems and internet in particular, those companies, they are limited to a limited amount of products. And which products? Well, those who are very popular. And Chris Anderson argued, well, this is a fundamental shift if you look what happened in the last roughly 10 years with this shift to e-commerce, with this opening of the market towards e-commerce and information technology. Because what happens is that nowadays, you are not only strictly limited to your physical environment. You can go broader than people in the 10 or 15 kilometers around your shop. You can basically ship your products further away across the whole world. And vice versa. People can visit your store not only by coming to the store in Brussels, but they can also visit your shop on the website. And they can do that in Brussels, they can do that in Antwerp, but they can also do that in Singapore. And that means that suddenly it becomes more profitable to also sell a lot of other products which are less popular, but because you have a worldwide reach, because more people can visit your store and you can ship your products to many more people, it suddenly also becomes more profitable to sell these products which are less popular. So it's a fundamental shift. By the fact that you can use the technology, you can completely change your business models. It will also improve your decision making in the sense that without the proper use of information technology, most companies, they more or less know how many products of product X or how many instances of product X did we sell. That they already knew before they were using information technology. But if you want the question, or if you have the question, which products should we continue, should we discontinue, or should we maybe introduce in our company, and at which price? Just having the ID, just having the grand total of how many products did we sell is not enough. These systems, they allow you to improve your decision making because they allow you to analyze, for instance, when did we sell certain products? Sometimes these things are very logical. I mean, Christmas trees, you will probably only sell them around November, December, maybe January, and not into the summer. But in a lot of cases, they are not so clear. So you can investigate by having this information in your database. What is the seasonality? Maybe throughout the whole year, it's not one pattern. Maybe it fluctuates a bit. Maybe there's a regional effect. Maybe certain products are more popular in area A than in area B. So you want to know that. What did it cost? You can get much more fine-grained information about the costs of a product, and you can calculate what does it cost, what is the price, is it actually profitable? To whom did we sell? You can gather information from your clients in terms of their age, their location, all other personal properties you can derive from that. And maybe you know, well, this is the typical client, this is the typical market segment that we are addressing with our shop. We know from other data that these products are also very appealing to that market segment. So based on that, we know, well, it's maybe better to introduce product A than product B in our store because we know that we are in that market segment. The combinations of products is literally the same. So it allows you, even if you have the same business model, even if you say, well, my operational excellence is already at quite a good point, then even it allows you for improved decision making. That might lead to competitive advantage. These days, what we see, and again, I will often use retail companies as examples because it resonates with many of you in the sense that we all know retail companies, so I think they're good examples. These systems, they also allow you as a manager, as an organization, to look for competitive advantage. What we see these days in retail companies is that they try to fight for those quick deliveries. And they have done quite some experiments, and some of them are already coming back from it. But some online stores and some regular retailers, they try to use or to fight for the customer by being able to deliver very, very quickly. Because apparently that's something that customers want. They buy something on the internet and they want to have it very quickly. And if you can deliver it more quickly than your competitor, you have a competitive advantage. Because the customer will choose for you as they have the product quicker. They try to do that now, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason because, first of all, they know that the customers want it, but second of all, because these kind of services are only possible when you have the IT systems that allow you to do that. When you have a very efficient web shop that allows you to get the order, to automatically pick the products, to draw the route that your delivery person or company should take, to group all those orders in a way that it's efficient, to notify your customer, hey, I will be there in 43 minutes, and here's my driver. So it's only because we have that technology that companies are now trying to look for competitive advantages in that way. Or even transposed to very traditional marketing means, in the sense that this was called out. I don't know whether they still do it, but a few years ago, they had very personalized magazines that they put into your physical mailboxes, where they said, well, we used to have this magazine, this weekly magazine, and it was the same for everyone. What they do now is they have, of course, they have information systems. They, by the way, not always work so well because they had a breakdown this week. But most of the time, they do work quite well. And instead of giving the same brochure to everyone, they said, well, we have those systems, and when people come to shop in our shop, they have their loyalty card. Unique code for every customer. They scan it, we scan it every time they pass by the counter, so we know exactly what they buy. And so we also are quite knowledgeable about the products that they're interested in, and that we might maybe even nudge them to buy more or to buy something different, similar but different in their area of interest. And so what they did, or what they maybe still do, is that they provide personalized marketing brochures to specifically address each customer. So theoretically speaking, none of those promotion magazines are the same. So each customer gets its own promotion magazine. Again, you can imagine that delivers a competitive advantage because you only have one front page in your magazine. And if you're able to grab the attention of your customer to make sure that here are the products that interests him or her quite a lot and that triggers them to go to your shop, well, then you will get more customers than your competitor. And of course, they also help you to survive. I said before, one of the only ways that some companies can have these super quick deliveries is because they have the IT systems. Well, imagine, to court, online retailers. They have their website, that is clear, but they do need a lot of other IT systems in order to be able to operate, in order to merely survive. Because once you order such a thing at a website, often there's picking of products, sometimes manually, sometimes automatically, but even if it's manually, there needs to be a clear sheet or a clear screen for the order picker to see these are the amounts of products that we need to have. They are placed here in our inventory. You need to drop them there, and they make sure that the route is optimized. They make sure that they are grouped in an efficient way. So if they go for the same streets, that all the orders for the same streets are shipped together. They need to have IT systems that make sure that they look at the inventory management. So if the stock of a certain product goes down, that they wait until there's a sufficient amount of goods to be ordered and they place the purchase order at one time so that they never run out of stock, but also that they make sure that they have an attractive price to order that. They have tracking software for customers. Customers want to know where their package is, when it is delayed, where they can pick it up, when they can pick it up. And just as we saw here in physical marketing brochures, they also allow you, or these IT systems also allow you to provide recommendations on their website. All right, that was the good news, and it's always good to end with something good. I suggest we have a short break now, and then after the break, we will have the inconvenient truth. It's now 10 sharp, so I guess I suggest we have like a 15-minute break, so 10:15, we continue. All right?